if you're playing in a crappy situation, do something beautiful. Do your best. Wherever you are, in whatever circumstance you are. Even if it's the crappiest gig ever.
Yeah.
Even if no one else hears it, you will hear it. My name is Ann Ellsworth, and I'm the Horn faculty here at Lawrence University. So when I moved to New York, that was pretty much all I did, was freelancing. And it was kind of a culture unto itself.
Sure.
And I kind of broke into the scene because I had an apartment in Midtown, which is right near the theater district. So I was the person, I kind of broke into the scene when people would get stuck in traffic. And I did stuff from weddings to church gigs, like at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And then I started doing the, recording stuff and the orchestra stuff and playing, doing some session work, which was kind of cool.
Sure.
Lots of chamber music and just kind of every possible thing you could think of to do. I had never set out to be a freelancer. I didn't know that you could actually make a living as a freelancer.
Sure.
Yeah, it's all word of mouth. These are all colleagues. And it's actually the contractors who, you would never get a call from the contractor unless one of your colleagues recommended you.
Sure.
With your breaking in. A lot of the work I got was friends of mine that were injured. And they had to step down, and they'd call and be like, hey, can you join this chamber music group, or can you take over this thing? I might have been playing second in a band, and then the person gets injured.
Sure.
So the cycle goes when you, so this is the cycle of a freelance musician.
Sure.
Who's Ann Ellsworth? Get
Right.
me Ann Ellsworth. Who's the next Ann Ellsworth? Who's Ann Ellsworth? And you just fill in whosever name you're talking about, right? When you first get to New York, you're doing really well when you're asked to come to a gig and you don't recognize anyone.
Sure.
Which means you're enlarging your sphere of influence there.
They heard about you.
Yeah, and that you're moving up into these different sort of circles of people playing. And then you get to a point where you know everyone, and you just show up and you do your thing. Hey, how's it going?
Right.
And then it's then after you're kind of there and you go to a gig and you don't know anyone, then you realize oh crap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
On your way out.
Yeah, well, kind of. So you all are.
We're all these 20-year-olds.
Yeah. Pretty much. And it's awesome, and it's it's as it should be. Yeah, I was in. I grew up in Palo Alto, right near Stanford University, and they had this. They were called the Savoyards. It was an Gilbert and Sullivan opera company, and I must have paid $30 a night or something.
Sure.
But I was hired to play in this pit when I was probably 15, 14 or 15, and so that's I remember sitting there and thinking this is great,
Fun.
Yeah, it was just fun. It was silly music and beautiful tunes. But then I got this idea of that whole pit scene is kind of unto itself. Hadn't really had any experience with that before then. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm just
And I was playing what we call freelance hardball, where I was double, triple booking,
Sure.
and then I had someone I knew could cover if this came through and put this on hold, whatever. Anyway, I did an Easter gig on the east side. I'd already done one Easter gig already, and I was doing another one. And they're a lot of money. So it's yeah, we're doing it. And so, and then the thing starts to go late. And I have a 1 o'clock Lion King, and I'm at 79th and Madison, and and then I have to get down to the theater district. So I'm
I gotta go.
guys, I gotta go. Because they had just instituted this thing. If a sub is late, you're out. You can't, because people were coming in late because they start with that the animals walking down the aisles, and the orchestra doesn't actually play for the first 10 minutes, but they want you in your seat, right?
Sure.
So I'm telling the guys, I can't. I have got to go, and they're like, yeah, go, because we'll just play a quartet or something. Yeah, whatever. Right. We'll cover you. So I got out there and I'm running, and I can't get a cab. And it starts to rain, and I'm in my, Easter black,
nice
right?
clothes,
Yeah, heels, pearls, the works, and I'm And so I'm like, okay, I can't get a cab. It's raining, it's Easter Sunday, and I run over to the Met Museum because I'm like, that's where cabs are, right?
Yeah.
So I jump in the cab and they're driving down and traffic and there's Easter parade and now I'm on the wrong side. And so I actually just got out of the cab, got to a dead end at like 59th, still on the east side.
Yeah.
And I just started running. And I was like, if I do 45 seconds a block,
Oh my God.
I can get there, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just like,
Booking it with your horn.
Because at that point, like, I was probably making like 25 grand just playing Lion King.
Right.
You know, I didn't want to like screw that up. So I get in there, and I just,
And you're covered in
sit
sweat and rain.
I sit down. I'm like, yeah, covered in. I'm soaking wet, and I'm also like in a mop sweat at that point.
Yeah.
Can't tell. And then so by the time we actually started playing, like the endorphins kicked in, and I was like, oh! I was like so jacked up. But that's, you know, I mean, yeah, 1,000 stories like that. But you gotta cover, and your friends will cover for you, and like a lot of the pit stuff. If I'm like, I can't, you know, I'll go and sit until they arrive. They just like need someone in black clothes sitting there with a horn, even if I've never played a show before. Yeah. You know, I can just go and sit. And then they have to give you like $50, and they'll come in at like 10 after, and you go home.
Sure.
It's like all this, like, that stuff doesn't show up on the, you know, union books or anything. But
sure, they don't care. As long as it just says,
you know,
Ann Ellsworth shows up on time.
Well, yeah, or Ann can get someone to cover for her. Yeah. Or Ann's covering for somebody else.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Well, and you know, it's funny because I don't really improvise over chords. Yeah. Like, I'm not like a jazz musician. No. But, yeah, in fact, I was playing a jazz gig with Lou Soloff, and we were passing around these solos, and he just sounded so amazing, and I'm supposed to like improvise over chords, and I'm not going to do that. So I actually just, we've been screwing around before it was like want to run out, right? And he was doing this like dog bark, like in the stairwell, just to be funny, like before the show, you know, like you know, whatever. And oh Lou, come on, man, stop, whatever. So we got to the show, and here comes this thing, and he sounded so great, and I'm supposed to follow that, and I don't even know what I'm doing. So I started barking, like he had done, and I got the audience to like bark. I'm like, woo, woo, you know. And then I'm like, you know, so there's actually a recording of like the audience like barking, and everyone starts barking for clearing my solo, and then we're like back, you know. And I just realized like, okay,
covered your solo.
There you go, man. You know, and they remembered it. And, okay, so I'm playing in this group called the Absolute Ensemble, and it's like a new music thing. And we're playing at Merkin Hall behind Lincoln Center, and I didn't play till the second half, so I just show up, of course, at the intermission. I'm not going to sit through this. I'm not going to sit through this nonsense. So, so I go in and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And everyone's like, oh my God, the audience is so dead. Oh, no. It is not happening. And this music wasn't a great program. I can be honest, right? So then the first piece on the second half, not a great piece, but it had this one note in it. It was a high written A, concert D, and with a fermata over it. So, you know, and I'm just like, okay. All right. So I told the conductor, was Christian Yarve, Mimi Yarve's son. I said, okay, I'm gonna do a cadenza. Don't bring in the orchestra until I look at you, and I'll go up to the high D and I'll just sit on it. But don't come in until I'm gonna do an improv. So we're sitting there, and the audience is totally dead. Yeah. Like there's nothing.
They're asleep.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm counting measures, and I'm thinking like, let's give them something to talk about. You know, I'm hearing this Bonnie Raitt song while I'm listening to this. Like, it's like a minimalist thing, whatever. So I decide, okay, I'm going to go to this whole note with the fermata. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a cadenza. I'm going to improvise a cadenza, and I'm not going to stop until I get a rise from the audience. So I just start, you know, and I'm like, you know, it plays out the. I'm just screaming and multiphonics and half out and nothing, you know. Still they're just like, and then finally I see them like looking around like this. I keep playing, and I start stomping my foot like a black boot, and I'm like, got the batons like falling down between his fingers, like.
Oh.
So, and then he brings the orchestra in. And then the New York Times gave me a review that said this, in an otherwise boring program, there was this bright spot, a solo by Ann Ellsworth that was an outrageously, splendidly projected, outrageous solo. So I was like, great, and the orchestra was like, God damn it.
All we did was play our part.
Yeah, like, damn it, like, you know. So then it was like, what does someone have to do to get a mention in the Times? And it was really great for me because it was, some people have entire careers playing horn that don't get a quote like that. So
all you had to do was just scream. And
I don't know, man, because I was like, I'm not. And then they were like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want them to be like this. And then
what was that?
yeah, I wasn't gonna stop playing until they did it.
And it's all in this backpack here. Water bottle.
Hydration first, right?
Yes.
And then there's some like repair stuff. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Blood sugar.
Oh.
You don't want to like get hungry.
Snacks.
That's not good. Of course, pencil. I got the rest of the stuff in here. Got to get your mutes for sure. Do it. Just put the mute in there.
Yeah.
And this is a great. We call these like, gig bags, but
Sure.
they're basically terrible. Okay, and then you need mouthpieces. And as horn players, trumpet players do this all the time. But I always bring like a bunch of mouthpieces with me because I never know what I'm going to be asked to play, and I have been asked to play things that require me to make a lot of different sound qualities. This is a mouthpiece puller, and you can say like, oh, really? Do you really need that? Well, yes, you do. And until you don't need it until you need it, and then you actually need this. And
what is it?
It's if your mouthpiece gets stuck into the lead pipe.
Oh.
And it doesn't happen often, but like I had this one mouthpiece that I don't know, somehow the metal was reacting with metal inside the lead pipe, and I couldn't get it out. And I'm on a bus, and people were trying to see me take this thing out, and I had the stem out of my lead pipe. I couldn't separate it, and I needed a different mouthpiece for the gig I was going to. I could not get it out. And so they're actually passing it around. The passengers are, let me try. And they're kind of just trying to get it out, and But this is the actual tool to do it. I got it after that, and I take it on. I'll take it on tours, and not necessarily on every gig, but certainly on a tour. When I came out here to Lawrence, I brought it because I was playing that little tiny horn, and then different horns. Yeah, seemingly innocuous, but until it's the right tool for the job, and it's not just me. Like you have the wind players, you can always count on to have like knives and small screwdrivers and that sort of thing. The tuba players have their own gear. You have your oils, and the other thing is you don't want to get like too much weight because it's a lot of schlepping.
And you're running around.
And you're out all day.
Yeah.
So and then the eating, the nutrition thing while you're on the fly is really important. Don't give into it. Don't eat the crappy food. And but the other thing is you can't, like an apple nuts are so great, but if I'm eating nuts and then trying to play, right?
Right.
So you have to really think about the kinds of food you can eat and then play right away. Right. So a lot of it was like liquid, kinds of things like protein shakes or, kombucha, kefir, sort of like
kefir was so good.
Liquid foods, and of course, you want to have your fire extinguisher.
Your fire hydrant.
Just in case, because gotta put fires out. But music is essential, and I actually I wouldn't bring a music stand unless they had asked me to. Most of the places I worked would have stands, but because you don't want to carry anything more than you need.
Yeah.
Because it really takes its toll. Sure. And there again, that's why it's important to exercise and just stay strong, be rested, and you don't know who's at that gig, and it may be like the crappiest gig ever, And when I first moved to New York, I played a lot of really, really crappy gigs.
Sure.
Where it was like, oh my gosh, like we're doing this, and then
Yeah.
I realized that it's much easier. You can rise to an occasion, but it's just as easy to fall to an occasion. And if everyone's sounding like crap and you don't want to concentrate and lead, it's very hard for you. You have to raise the level of playing if it's below yours. You have to be that person who brings everyone else up.
Sure.
And because you don't know who's there, even just for yourself, you don't want to hear yourself sound badly. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't want to sound bad.